In the mirrored space of the eternal hell, Hela showed no reaction to the arrival of the Ancient One, as she had more important things to do. Like the Ancient One, she fought against the two Heavenly Fathers alone. Without falling into a disadvantage, only when Hades and Satana joined forces could they barely fight Hela to a draw. The three of them maintained a seemingly fragile but unbreakable balance. No one could win quickly, with a deep purple beam of annihilation sweeping over. Revealing its true form, the massive figure of the Lord of the Underworld, Hades, became the target. Swept away by the beam of annihilation, cut in half at the waist. The plump body was evenly divided into two. Ah! 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 Hades roared in pain. Its formidable defense had no effect against the annihilation beam. Ignoring the defense, it caused real damage, leaving the Heavenly Fathers helpless. Shu Shu, you really have some tricks up your sleeve. Shu Shu instantly appeared in front of Hades, his eyes glowing with a deep purple, triple, light. Buzz. The annihilation beam at close range. Directly delivering a continuous blow to Hades' forehead. Another Heavenly Father fell, or rather, another god fell, and both of them died at the hands of Shu Shu. Darling? Seeing the annihilation beam, Hela understood that Shu Shu had arrived. Let's catch up later, there's still one more. Shu Shu didn't say much, turning his head to look at Satana. This seductive lord, known for her beauty and sexiness, was now a bloody mess and barely recognizable. What's this? Shu Shu frowned. His eye sockets glowed with purple light again. Boom. However, before Shu Shu could use the annihilation beam, there was a loud noise. Ancient One. Mephisto. Satanish. Three destructive energies collide with each other, destroying the mirror space of the eternal hell in an instant. The tilted continent turns into fragments, with mountains, lava, and rivers all shattered into tiny pieces. Under the reflection of the erupting energy, it shines with a dazzling array of colors. Then, a ring-shaped energy spreads out. Wherever it passes, the space shatters layer by layer, and the naked eye can see the void. The cloak of the Great Shadow. Feeling the terrifying power of this energy, Shu Shu quickly pulls Hela into the embrace of the king. At the same time, he unfurls the cloak of the Great Shadow behind him. Before this, Shu Shu had asked the king, who was the previous owner of this cloak, the Great Shadow? The king initially refused to answer. Shu Shu pressed him repeatedly. Only then did the king tremble and speak the answer. It has many names, the Great Shadow, the Lord of the Underworld, the Old God, but the most famous one is the God of Black Magic. It is Surtur. Shu Shu unfurls the cloak of the Great Shadow. Just like before, it fully absorbs the incoming destructive energy. Shu Shu and Hela are not harmed in the slightest. And this, it seems that it still hasn't reached the absorption limit of this cloak. The unfurled cloak of the Great Shadow, like a black hole, absorbs all the incoming energy. No. 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 Ah. 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 Meanwhile, Satana, who has no means of defense, is directly hit by this terrifying energy. Already covered in wounds, she melts away like being sliced by countless knives. Finally, she completely dissipates in the aftermath of the battle with the Ancient One and others. Exquisite and enchanting. The succubus lord who has stolen the essence of countless men in dreams. The daughter of Satan. The purest-blooded lord of hell. Just like that, she dies. Dying in the aftermath of a battle. So this is the Sorcerer Supreme? Hela pokes her head out from Shu Shu's embrace, looking around in horror at the dissipating energy. If even the Ancient One is this powerful, then how strong must Odin, who is on par with the Ancient One, and her own inept father be? Was Odin really helpless and had to seal himself in Helheim? Can he really not handle my daughter? Hela began to doubt for the first time. Soon. The destructive energy dissipated. The mirror dimension has also completed its mission and shattered completely. But it is precisely because of the mirror dimension that in reality, the true eternal hell remains intact. The tilted earth, the collapsed mountains, and the apocalyptic scene are still there. This is actually quite good, because without the protection of the mirror dimension, the eternal hell at the moment probably wouldn't even have a complete stone left. The energy dissipates. The result of the battle is also revealed. Among the three top heavenly fathers, only the Ancient One remains standing in place, with a calm expression as if nothing had happened. But Mephisto and Satanish both lie on the ground. The boss is indeed the boss. Shu Shu gives a thumbs up. After retracting the cloak of the great demon shadow, he walks towards the Ancient One. Don't come any closer, child. Suddenly, the voice of the Ancient One resounds. Just as Shu Shu was about to ask, why? Boom. The sky collapses. More precisely, the space collapses. Above the eternal hell, a piece of sky suddenly collapses, revealing stars. Immediately, a breath of extinction spreads from it. Ancient One. A pair of eyes open from the stars. Followed by an incredibly huge face. Like a fallen sky, it covers the sky of the eternal hell, facing the brilliant stars. Countless wave-like vertical lines fluctuate on that giant face. The breath of destruction envelops everyone's heads. Dormammu. Chu recognizes the identity of this guy. After all, this iconic face is almost identical to the one in the movie. A small piece of broken hell dimension doesn't even qualify to be devoured by me. Dormammu looks disdainfully at the eternal hell. As the Lord of the Dark Dimension, it has assimilated countless pocket universes and dimensions, claiming to be the ruler of multiple dimensions. In terms of strength, it surpasses the vast majority of dimensions. Among the dimensions, it is undoubtedly the top. The thief who steals power. Do you think I will let you go? Dormammu's gaze fell only on Gu, the person. As for the other beings on the field, it didn't even bother to look at them. Because it was disdainful, they were too weak. If it weren't for the Ancient One, Dormammu wouldn't even respond to Satanish's summons. Gu remained calm. She had long prepared herself for this day. Dormammu, let's put an end to this, Ancient One said. Unexpectedly, she flew towards Dormammu's dark dimension on her own initiative. Wait. Don't go over there. Chu was startled by Ancient One's actions. No, boss, why are you going over there? With me here, can Dormammu even harm a single hair on you? Harm a single sweat hair. Seeing Ancient One's desperate and crazy actions, Chu didn't hesitate at all. Even if it meant missing an opportunity to kill Mephisto, he didn't hesitate. He took out the exorcism card, activated the ritual. Dormammu, right? Dimension Mephisto, right? Get lost. Go as far away as possible. A white light flashed. The familiar scene appeared again. First, Hela, who was closest to Chu, then the heavily injured Mephisto, Satanish. Finally, above the eternal hell, that vast face like the sky. Hela disappeared. Dormammu disappeared. Mephisto disappeared. All the beings that served evil disappeared. Even the Ancient One also disappeared. Chu stood still. He suddenly understood how strong Ancient One's desire for death was. Strong enough that even if he tried his best to save her, she would still seek death with all her heart. Why bother, boss? Chu shook his head. Then he took out the space gem, tearing open a teleportation passage along the residual traces. Without hesitation, he stepped into it. Dark dimension. A dimension that has consumed countless worlds and planets. The consumed planets have turned into an evil purplish-black color, connected to each other by a certain substance. One planet connected to another planet, eventually forming a massive cluster of stars, like a web of intersecting pieces. There is still life on those planets, but they have long been corrupted by the forces of darkness. They have become nourishment for the dark dimension, supplies for Dormammu. When Chu passed through the space gem's passage and set foot on one of the purplish-black planets, he immediately felt a force attempting to corrupt his consciousness. Definitely, Chu, with his pure soul, will not be tainted by any force. But he noticed that the intensity of this force's corruption on his consciousness was exponentially increasing. In other words, as time goes on, or the more dark power is absorbed, the corruption targeting consciousness becomes stronger and harder to resist. So this is why the Ancient One wanted to seek death? Chu seemed to understand something. Chu knows that the Ancient One possesses the power of Dormammu's dark dimension within her. But everything comes with a price. By stealing this power, the Ancient One extended her own lifespan and made herself even more powerful. But the dark dimension's energy is also constantly eroding the Ancient One's consciousness. No wonder in the movie, the Ancient One falls from the building and dies. Chu chuckled. His biggest question before was how a celestial being could be killed by Newton. Now it seems the only explanation is that she was tired. She wanted to rest. After finding a suitable successor, the Ancient One chose to seek death. Just like Thanos in the comics, often saying that death is not scary to him, on the contrary, death has always been a comforting and peaceful promise. But in Chu's eyes, isn't it just owing a little bit of Dormammu's dark power? So what if there's a debt? In the past, you protected me, and in the future, I will support you on Dormammu's side. It's not a big deal, seeking life and death. Chu shook his head. He expanded his consciousness to search for the Ancient One's trace. At the same time, in the depths of the dark dimension, a great battle has already ended, or rather, it can't even be considered a great battle. Ancient One, Sorcerer Supreme, using my power to deal with me, is this the wisdom of the Supreme? Dormammu sneered at the Sorcerer Supreme who was easily defeated by him. The Ancient One, who possessed the power of darkness, fought against the true master of the dark power. It's like strapping explosives to oneself and then fighting against an enemy holding the detonator. The result can be imagined. If you were on Earth, I wouldn't have much to do with you, but you came here. Dormammu laughed. In the dark dimension, it didn't even need to make a real move. Just manipulating the dark energy was enough to easily defeat the Ancient One. Who asked you to bring explosives and seek death? The Ancient One, who was suspended by magical chains, did not refute Dormammu's words. She simply said calmly, "Take away your power." HMPH. Dormammu didn't say much. He raised his hand and took back all the dark power stolen from the Ancient One's body. The Ancient One was already a dead man, and Dormammu definitely wouldn't let these powers go to waste. Just as Dormammu took back the dark power, it suddenly sensed something. Mockingly, it said, "I didn't expect someone to come to the dark dimension to save you? Is it your disciple? Or someone else related to you?" The Sorcerer Supreme. Magician. Dormammu's use of Sorcerer Supreme was full of mockery. Because without the dark power sustaining her, the Ancient One was rapidly aging and losing her power. A pitiful person who can barely sustain their life with my dark energy. Do you even deserve to be called the Supreme? That's still better than being driven out by one's own race, like a stray dog with no place to go. Isn't it better to end up in the dark dimension, betraying allies and taking over their nests like a waste? Just as Dormammu mocked the Ancient One, Chushu's voice suddenly appeared. As always. Straight to the point. What did you say? Dormammu turned around abruptly. His massive figure brought immense pressure. Chushu could feel that it was a power stronger than Quagsire. I said, "You're a waste." Chushu smiled faintly and said without hesitation. Dormammu was once a member of the Falt race. Members of this race are composed of pure magical energy, also known as energy life. Dormammu is one of the members of this race, but it is inherently evil and greedy. In order to obtain energy, it began to attack and massacre its own kind. In the end, Dormammu's actions were exposed, and it was expelled from the Falt race. The former lord of the Dark Dimension, Ulna, took in Dormammu and formed an alliance with it, starting invasions and devouring of other dimensions. But now, Dormammu has become the lord of the Dark Dimension. It's not hard to guess what happened to Ulna. Oh, what Mordo said is not wrong. The author of the Chronicles of Magic wrote it in such a dry manner, but the good thing is, one day when I was using the restroom, I forgot to bring my phone. Chushu had a nonchalant expression on his face. But behind him, the Ancient One, who was suspended by chains, noticed the green spell formation on Chushu's wrist. Eye of Agamotto. Time gem. You brat, didn't I tell you to give it back after using it? The weak voice of the Ancient One asked. Hehe, there's a word missing in my dictionary. Guess which one it is, Your Excellency. Chushu smiled. Do you all think I don't exist? Dormammu, who was hit by Chushu's sore spot, instantly became enraged. He opened his mouth and released a beam of energy towards Chushu. Wherever it passes, all things vanish. Its power even surpasses Kisilius's 200 annihilation rays. Cloak. Chushu immediately unfurled the cloak of the Dark Shadow. Although he had saved the file and could infinitely reload it like Strange. But he didn't want to do that. At least, he wanted to give it a try. No matter what you are, Mephisto, or what kind of lord. Let's fight. Dormammu, however, just as Dormammu attacked Chushu, the Ancient One, who was suspended by chains, suddenly lifted her head. A pair of eyes, clouded and aged, flickered with terrifying ferocity. That gaze even made Dormammu tremble. If you want to know what the Sorcerer Supreme is, then you have succeeded. I will make you understand what it means to be the Supreme. Without the support of dark power, the Ancient One had become as old as a 100-year-old man. Her entire body of magic, 1 in 10 remains. Just with you now. Dormammu didn't understand. Without even magic, what right do you have to threaten me? Just with me. I am the Sorcerer Supreme. The Ancient One's cloudy gaze stared at Dormammu. Even if the methods I have learned have betrayed me at this moment, I am also the Sorcerer Supreme. Whether it is the time of radiance or the day of darkness. I am also the Sorcerer Supreme, master of all things. After a deafening roar, dimensions shattered. In a trance, 3 Sorcerer Supremes simultaneously reached out to the Ancient One. Old God. Oixite Ancient God, Hogs, Ancient Supreme, Agamotto. In a trance, the 3 divine beings simultaneously reached out their hands towards the Ancient One. The primordial flames of magic ignited in the eye sockets of the Ancient One. Her body, withered and shriveled due to age, swiftly expanded. The size of the Ancient One began to grow. The two magic chains that bound her were instantly broken free and melted away by the flames of primordial magic. Door. Ma'am. Mew. Don't you want to know what it means to be supreme? The power of primordial magic poured out. The size of the Ancient One multiplied countless times, and the planets became stepping stones beneath her feet. This was originally just an ordinary high-level magic, the ancient body of Hogs. But after receiving the favor of Visan Emperor, the Ancient One truly mastered the power of the ancient god Hogs. I'll tell you, this is supreme. The countenance of the Ancient One was shrouded in raging flames. Her left hand turned into a high-energy hammer, and her right hand held a magic sword thousands of kilometers long. That is, the sword of Visan Emperor. For a moment, countless thoughts flashed through Dormammu's mind. But in the next moment, all thoughts turned into two words: oh no. Visan Emperor. Dormammu looked at the scene in disbelief. The Ancient One, who had just aged to the point of almost dying in the next second, was now standing on a planet. The burning magic sword in her hand was pointing directly at him. Dormammu could sense how terrifying power was contained in this sword. Ancient One, you have repaid the energy you owe me. How about I send you all away? No need for more words. The Ancient One was furious. She swung her sword. The dazzling incandescence illuminated everything. In an instant, the entire dark dimension was enveloped in white light. On those corrupted planets, countless trillions of beings simultaneously raised their heads. Pairs of eyes whose minds had been corrupted by darkness briefly saw a glimmer of light. Boom. Dormammu had no way to avoid it. He could only gather dark energy to form a barrier in front of him. Then, in the next moment, an even brighter white light exploded in front of Dormammu. Just the scattered aftermath destroyed several nearby planets. Ah. 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 Ancient One. Are you really going to fight me to the death? The white light dissipates, and Dormammu is furious. The dark barrier in front of it has already shattered. What's wrong with that? The Ancient One, larger than a planet, appears instantly in front of Dormammu. With its left hand transformed into a high-energy hammer, engulfed in burning magical flames, it strikes Dormammu with one blow. Boom. Translucent. Dormammu's body is directly pierced by the magical flames. The fierce flames of primal magic form a shockwave that emerges from behind Dormammu, like a gamma ray emitted during a supernova explosion, shooting towards the deeper parts of the boundless dark dimension. Wherever it passes, planets vanish. On the initially purple-black planet, Chu Shu's eyes are filled with shock, to be precise. He's a little confused. It's not. Who exactly is saving whom? Chu Shu looks down at the time magic on his wrist. Damn it. It's not even needed. Originally, Chu Shu made several preparations. First was the exorcism ritual. Dormammu is the lord of the dark dimension. However, it is not a native life of the dark dimension. The exorcism ritual may or may not be effective against it. In any case, you won't know until you try. Secondly, Chu Shu has the Eye of Agamotto, which can imitate Doctor Strange's bargaining conditions. Lastly, this is Chu Shu's true plan. Summon a few tough guys directly and destroy the dark dimension together. Just like how a bunch of villainous ice were summoned to destroy Ultron back then. Chu Shu has already prepared a list in his mind, such as DC's monstrous beast, Cthulhu's Azathoth, the demon lord Luo Hu from the primordial chaos, the Scarlet King of the Foundation, and so on. Aren't they just demons? Aren't they just villains? If they provoke me, I'll flip the table. We can all go down together. If the Ancient One's act of bringing dark energy to the dark dimension is equivalent to a person wearing a bomb vest and fighting an enemy with a detonator, then Chu Shu's actions, roughly speaking, it's like carrying 2 nuclear bombs and challenging someone to a fight. Come on, try punching me? Try it and die. But Chu Shu never expected that the Ancient One also had an ace up her sleeve. Originally, she was determined to sacrifice herself, but when she saw Chu Shu risking his life, she also entered the dark dimension. She directly played her trump card and flipped the table before Chu Shu. If I didn't come, this old lady would probably have sought death. Chu Shu understood that if he hadn't come, the Ancient One would have just peacefully awaited death. The shocking scene before my eyes would not have happened. She should have reached level single universe by now, right? Chu Shu looked into the distance at the Ancient One, which was even larger than a planet, and was shocked. I can't intervene in this situation, the aftermath of their battle. Destroying a planet is just a matter of moments. Oh well, Chu Shu took out the reality gem, summoned a sofa, grabbed some potato chips, and put on sunglasses. While watching the battle, he also took out his phone and recorded this shocking scene. In the dark dimension, The battle between the Supreme Ancient One and Dormammu destroyed a large number of planets. Around the two of them, there were debris from planets everywhere, forming a belt of meteorites. Dormammu's voice trembled. The power of the Supreme Ancient One exceeded its expectations. Dormammu, who had conquered countless dimensions and claimed to be the ruler of multiple dimensions, was actually at a disadvantage, being pressed and rubbed against the void by the Supreme Ancient One. But Dormammu knew, the balance of victory still leaned towards him. Ancient One, you won't be able to hold on much longer. Dormammu raised his hand and unleashed a destructive shockwave. In the dark dimension, its power was endless and inexhaustible. The infinitely violent energy turned into a torrent and attacked the Ancient One. But the Ancient One simply raised her left hand, which had transformed into a high-energy hammer. One punch, and she shattered the destructive energy. The exploding energy formed a terrifying shockwave, instantly flattening the nearby fragments of planets. That's enough to deal with you, but the Ancient One also knew that she couldn't hold on much longer. She was ready to make a desperate move. The Ancient One pointed the Vishanti sword in her hand directly at Dormammu. An incredibly dazzling white light gathered at the tip of the sword. Her figure began to shrink. The magical flames in her eyes began to dim. Primordial magic. Unparalleled power. Recklessly releasing an aura that could destroy everything. Dormammu, do you now understand what it means to be supreme? The Ancient One returned to her slender form. But the Vishanti sword in her hand had completely turned white. Just you wait. Elder, Ancient One. Feeling the power condensed at the tip of the sword, Dormammu's mind suddenly blurted out a sentence. The end of all things is near. We have settled our debts. I can let you take away your successor. Really? You can leave. I'm not lying to you. Really? Dormammu finally panicked, no longer displaying its previous arrogance. The Ancient One remained silent, silently swung the sword. White. Dazzling white. Utmost white. The dark dimension can no longer be associated with the word dark. Dormammu instantly gave up everything. It gave up resistance, and it gave up the dark dimension. It fled, faced with the fatal blow from the Supreme Ancient One. Dormammu didn't even dare to think about resisting. The black and purple planet of the dark dimension dissipated like melting snow, one by one. Chu Shu's sunglasses were stained white. Popcorn fell to the ground. The recording phone also fell, being forgetful. Suddenly, the Ancient One appeared from the white light, arrived beside Chu Shu, picked up his dropped phone and popcorn from the ground. Don't take such risks next time. I have lived for hundreds of years. I have had enough. You are still young. The Ancient One returned the phone and popcorn to Chu Shu's hands. With the usual smile on her face, Chu Shu stood still like a stake. Didn't move. Even the sunglasses were crooked. Chu Shu, my child, I hope you remember. No matter what the future holds, Kamar Taj will always be your harbor, your home in this world. It has been so since the moment you crossed over. The Ancient One calmly adjusted Chu Shu's sunglasses. And her body, like the surrounding dissolving planets, gradually disappeared. Sorry, boss, I was just scared. Well, Until the Ancient One's body had faded to the point of almost being invisible. Just before completely dissolving, Chu Shu finally came to his senses. I know you want to rest, but the problem is, I damn well won't allow even a hint of sentimental scenes in this book, father. Smack. A golden energy slapped the almost dissipating head of the Ancient One. The Ancient One has died, her body dissolved. She has settled all debts, she has come before eternity. Finally, what I wanted. Eternal peace. The Ancient One sat cross-legged, slowly closed her eyes, and a genuine smile of tranquility appeared on her lips. Finally. Retired. Clap A. But in the instant the Ancient One closed her eyes, a sound came from above her head, as if someone had slapped her on the head. This undoubtedly disturbed the peace she desired. The Ancient One opened her eyes in confusion, only to find eternity moving away from her. No, it was herself who was rapidly moving away from eternity. No, 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 you brat, Chu Shu, how dare you, Yua. The Ancient One unusually cursed. This rare scene even made the departing eternity open its eyes and take another look at the Ancient One. No. No. The Ancient One unwillingly reached out her hand, but it was in vain. She could only watch helplessly as the tranquility of eternity grew further and further away from her. Soon, eternity disappeared. The peace that the Ancient One sought also disappeared. Only a grinning face remained in front of her. Elder, are you awake? Chu Shu grinned, with an expression of, it had to be me. The Ancient One took a deep breath. She struggled to get up from the ground. Surrounding is a green grassland, resembling a vast prairie. Where is this? This is Earth, Venerable One. We have returned. We had to come back. You almost wiped out the dark dimension with a single sword strike. Nowhere else to go. Chu Shu shrugged and replied. I'm asking you, where on earth is this? Oh, it's the eastern grasslands. I was thinking, if you don't make it through, this place has good feng shui with mountains and water. Chu Shu pointed to a rectangular pit dug not far away. Clearly, preparations had been made. Seriously, Venerable One. If you don't make it through, I'm ready to go back to Kamar Taj and change the Wi-Fi password. Chu Shu half-jokingly said. Change what password? HHHHGYSL, right? The Ancient One clenched her fist, resisting the urge to whip Chu Shu with a belt. Boss. And you said you couldn't read minds. The Ancient One resurrected from death, bringing both good news and bad news. The good news was that she had paid off all her debts after death and no longer had any dark energy in her body. The bad news was that she had lost all her power and was now on par with the great magician king. Back at Kamar Taj, the Ancient One summoned Strange, Wang, and Mordo, with Chu Shu standing by. Venerable One, Strange looked at the Ancient One in shock. He knew more about the secrets within the Ancient One. Now, after being resurrected by the power of the Morning Star, the Ancient One looked no different in appearance. But Strange could clearly sense that the energy within the Ancient One had become pure. The previous Ancient One was similar to Chu Shu, with a mix of various energies, constantly persecuting the Mephisto dimension. But now, the Ancient One only had pure white magic within. As you can see, something has happened to me. The reason for these changes is because of some unavoidable mistakes I made in the past. Wang, I know what you want to say, but I am no longer suitable to be the Sorcerer Supreme. This is the decision of the Vishanti Emperor. In order to resign, the Ancient One even brought up the Vishanti Emperor. As for whether it's true or false, it doesn't matter since no one dares to question the Vishanti Emperor. The only one not afraid of the Vishanti Emperor, Chu Shu, also leans towards it being true. After all, the Ancient One, as the Sorcerer Supreme of the Vishanti Emperor's lineage, has done plenty of betraying the teacher and destroying the ancestor deeds. Not to mention, just the absorption of dark power. It's probably not easy to explain to the Vishanti Emperor. The new Sorcerer Supreme, I have decided. The Ancient One paused, scanning the crowd with their gaze. First, Chu Shu, who immediately turned his head away and whistled, can't see me, can't see me. The Ancient One clenched their teeth. Then they looked at Wang, who remained silent and slightly lowered his head. Next was Strange, who stared with wide eyes, completely confused about the situation. What happened? There wasn't a coup, right? Why is the Sorcerer Supreme suddenly abdicating? Mordo, on the other hand, had an expectant look on his face, and both of his hands hidden behind his back were trembling with excitement. Choose me. Choose me. I have decided to appoint Strange as the Sorcerer Supreme. The Ancient One almost had no other choice and was forced to announce Strange's name. Very strange. Clearly, Strange was destined to be the successor. But why does it feel wrong when it's actually announced? Wang, this kid hasn't grown up yet, so you will temporarily handle the duties of the Sorcerer Supreme. Yes, respected Ancient One, the Great Magician. Wang nodded. The title for the Ancient One also changed to the Great Magician. Let's go, kid. After stepping down, the Ancient One felt a sense of relief. They turned around and patted Chu Shu on the shoulder. Where are we going? Chu Shu was confused. Didn't you always say you didn't want to be an Asgardian in the holy place of New York? Fine, starting today, I will protect the holy place of New York. I'll be watching you every day, the Ancient One said with a triumphant smile. If you won't let me retire, fine, I'll keep an eye on you and won't let you slack off. Chu Shu was puzzled. Has this woman hit menopause? Why does saving your life seem to harm you instead? Well, there's something I need to do in hell, so I'll go there first. Chu Shu couldn't figure it out, so he decided not to think about it. Though it's shameful to escape, it's quite effective. After saying those words, he teleported away from Kamar Taj without looking back. The cunning rabbit still has 3 burrows, you guard your holy place in New York, and I'll go to hell, isn't that fine? Mordo. Fisto. Sto. Get out. Chu Shu teleported directly to Mephisto's fiery hell. That's right. He couldn't bear to let the grudge last overnight. If it weren't for Mephisto, Dormammu wouldn't have come. If Dormammu didn't come, the Ancient One wouldn't have died. If the Ancient One didn't die, his Morning Star history wouldn't have been consumed. In conclusion, Mephisto, here, get the hell out. Chu Shu kicked open the gates of the fiery hell. At the same time, He invoked the authority of the heavens and summoned Gila, who had been banished to Helheim. Darling, it seems like Mephisto isn't here? Gila, who had been summoned, asked with concern about what had happened after she was banished. Then she noticed. There was no longer any trace of Mephisto's presence in the fiery hell. Did they run away? Hell doesn't want them anymore. Shu Shu found it hard to believe upon hearing this news. Mephisto ran away. Even the flame hell didn't want him. And it's not just Mephisto. Satanish, the one who summoned Dormammu and the Lord of the Dark Hell, also ran away. Wait. They both ran away. And then Belasco died, Lucifer died, Hades died, that Satana also died. Shu Shu counted on his fingers and came to a conclusion. Except for the two of us, there are no more Hell Lords outside. Yes. Gila nodded. Her face was filled with disappointment, unhappiness, and no more battles to fight. Shu Shu was also very disappointed. Mainly because he wasn't sure if he had gained or lost. Because during the last Great War, he was too busy fighting and forgot to lick the bag. Lucifer, Hades, and Satana, all the energy after their deaths returned to their respective hell dimensions. But if you say he lost, Shu Shu could easily occupy these dimensions without lords. By then, those returning energies would become his possessions. It's just that they changed from cash to deposits. Now, Mephisto and Satanish have both run away. It means that Flame Hell and Dark Hell have become unguarded. It's like the bosses and CEOs of two physical companies have run away. Although they still hold shares in the company. But the most valuable physical assets of these two companies have all fallen into Shu Shu's hands. In this case, it seems like I've gained, and gained big. Shu Shu suddenly realized. His once unrealistic idea now has the possibility of being realized. To reconstruct the shattered hell into a complete dimension of hell. Now, the most difficult step of this plan has passed. Gila, quickly bring these lordless hells under our actual control, Shu Shu ordered. No problem. Which hell do you want to start with? The Dark Hell? The Flame Hell? Hades' underworld, or Satana's succubus hell? Succubus. 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 Without hesitation, Shu Shu decisively chose the succubus hell. Joking aside, with the presence of succubi, why consider the other options? Darling? Hela's gaze was unkind. Cough cough, don't misunderstand, I'm just considering it from a policy perspective. After all, no matter which hell it is, we ultimately want to control it, it's just a matter of sequence. Shu Shu had a righteous face and a righteous aura. It was just succubi, after all. He was the holder of a holy soul. Let's go. We should hurry a bit, so the night doesn't grow too long. Shu Shu couldn't wait. The fly rubbed its hands. Succubus. Here I come. The epic battle between the Supreme Ancient One and Dormammu quickly spread across multiple dimensions. It also spread to the boundless universe of the main world. In the depths of the universe, Thanos, the Mad Titan, was sitting quietly on his floating throne surrounded by meteorites. Suddenly, he opened his eyes. The Ancient One finally. Alive again. Thanos' smile at the corner of his mouth didn't last a second before it disappeared. Great Thanos. As far as I know, the Ancient One suffered heavy losses in this battle. We analyze. Her power has probably fallen below the god level. Just as Thanos was about to continue welding his butt to the seat, one of his servants, Ebony Maw, one of the Black Order, stepped forward. There are reports indicating that the Ancient One has relinquished the position of Sorcerer Supreme. The successor is a human. At the moment, there is no specific information about this successor, but the only thing that can be confirmed is that this successor is very weak. Ebony Maw is also a magician. However, it is not skilled in casting spells, but in telekinesis. Using its powerful telekinetic ability, it can move objects through space and even alter the structure of matter. You have done a good job, Ebony Maw. Thanos slowly stood up. According to Shu Shu's statement, it moved its buttocks, which were welded to the seat, once again. Father. At this moment, Nebula, one of Thanos' adopted daughters, kneeled before Thanos' throne, passing through the surrounding meteorites. The Guardians of the Galaxy have left the Power Stone on Xandar. Do you need me to retrieve it for you? Nebula knelt down on the ground. Although she wished she could kill Thanos, the vast difference in power forced her to suppress her hatred. No, Thanos knew exactly what his daughter was thinking. But it didn't care. Faced with Nebula's voluntary offer, the Cosmic Overlord slowly descended from its throne. This time, I will personally take action. Thanos stopped in front of its vault. A meteorite slowly rose, supporting a glove on top. In the depths of the universe, one of the 5 primordial gods, the ravenous planet Devourer, also sensed something. It was a survivor from the previous universe, existing long before the Marvel Universe's Big Bang. And now, this ravenous Galactus sensed the changes on Earth. But unlike Thanos, what it cared about was on a much higher dimension. The Eternals have ceased their protection of that world. The planet Devourers sensed that the Ancient One had lost the Eternals' protection. In other words, that planet, the planet located at the axis of the main world. Now it has lost its eternal protection. It's time to change direction, Silver Surfer. There is a more delicious planet waiting for me. Herald of Galactus. The Silver Surfer received the order and immediately changed direction. Wherever he passed, as far as the eye could see, there were countless light years of pitch black and lifeless star domains. In this star domain, there was not a single fixed star or planet, only silence and death. Similarly, in the universe, Thor, with wounds on his face, swung Mjolnir, allowing the divine hammer to soar through space with him. He had just left the realm of fire, Muspelheim. There, he had experienced a great battle, but he did not find the answers there. He couldn't even meet the ruler of the realm of fire, the flame giant, Surt. Where have the gods in the universe gone? Even the enemies of the gods have disappeared. It's truly strange. Thor swung Mjolnir and arrived at a solar system called Indagir. There was a sun named Indagir and a planet named Indagir here. Even the gods here are called Indagir. Thor couldn't help but complain. This was the first time he discovered that someone's ability to name things was worse than his own. Thor entered this star system, in space. He found a floating pantheon. The gods of Indagir are here. Thor swung his divine hammer and landed at the entrance of the palace, took a deep breath, and pushed open the heavy doors. In an instant, Thor's pupils dilated, because inside the pantheon, there were floating massive corpses. Those were the gods of Indagir. Darling, is this what you meant? Due to policy considerations. Just say whether it's done or not. The work of controlling the demon hell is progressing smoothly. At first, Gila planned to call the army over and follow the example of the Lingbo prison, starting by killing half of them. But the result was, Chu Shu and Gila had just set foot in the demon hell. And then, in an instant, a vast number of enchanting demons bowed down and kneeled before them. Demons are a race that admires strength. Originally, their power was not strong, so they urgently needed a powerful lord to protect them. Upon learning of the death of the previous lord, Satana, their first reaction was not revenge, but how to find a new powerful lord. Therefore, when Chu Shu arrived here with the intention of ruling, both sides quickly reached an agreement and colluded with each other. Chu Shu easily became the leader of the demons without any obstacles. Tisk tisk, quite an eye-opener. After this trip, Chu Shu can say that he has gained a lot of insight. He originally thought that demons were, well, you know, beautiful ladies. But he didn't expect. In addition to beautiful ladies, this race also has male demons that target women. What's even more outrageous is that there are demons specifically targeting aliens, like those with multiple tentacles, 7 or 8 eyes, colorful skin, and sharp teeth all over. No, I can understand if they look like Cthulhu, but what's with that Cybertron robot? Is the target Optimus Prime, or Megatron? Furthermore, Chu Shu also discovered a group of silver-skinned demons with metallic structures like robots. Report to Lord, their target group is a race called Kasana. This race particularly favors life forms that are half human and half mechanical. A female demon in human form answered. Chu Shu glanced back at her. This one is good. A face of innocence and ignorance, with watery big eyes full of innocence, clearly a good person at first glance. Definitely forced and reluctant to become a succubus. Daring, it seems like you enjoy this kind of setting, huh? Should I also play the role of an innocent, pitiful, and weak fallen girl? Gila leaned over, using a finger to hook Chu Shu's chin, teasingly saying, don't mess around, I'm just showing some concern for my employees, nothing else. Chu Shu withdrew his gaze, his face sternly saying, then you really are a good boss. Unfortunately, we should go to other hells. From beginning to end, Gila never paid much attention to these succubi, even when she did, it was with a contemptuous gaze. She didn't like this race. In her eyes, a race without combat power, only able to rely on the strong, was not worth pitying. Well then, I'll leave the remaining hells to you. I won't go. After experiencing the various oddities of the succubi, Chu Shu's curiosity had been satisfied. Firstly, he was too lazy to go one by one. And most importantly, there were no succubus ladies in the remaining hells. What's so interesting about a bunch of dumb demons? It's fine, just go ahead and kill them, leaving the succubus hell. Chu Shu returned to the peaceful city of New York. This time, it was truly peaceful, with no aliens or demons. The aftermath of the dimensional collision had ended. There were no more new demons coming to Earth, and there were no more people disappearing for no reason. At the same time, the Avengers also emerged from the aftermath of the Ultron crisis. More precisely, Tony Stark emerged from the trouble caused by Ultron. Thanks to Chu Shu's butterfly effect, this time, Ultron did not cause the Sokovia crisis. Naturally, there was no later, Sokovia Accords, that triggered the Avengers' Civil War. However, Tony Stark was forced to sign an agreement limiting artificial intelligence, promising not to research any more artificial intelligence. And the already upgraded Super AI JARVIS was rolled back to its original Butler version. Definitely. This is the information that was publicly announced. As for whether Tony Stark has made a backup of the Super AI version of JARVIS, no one knows. It seems like I missed a lot of things during this time. Chu Shu returned to Earth, but did not immediately go to the holy place in New York. Instead, he randomly found an internet cafe and started surfing the internet. That's right. Surfing the internet while hiding from parents. Ant-Man appeared and joined the Avengers Alliance? It's strange. Isn't Dr. Pym the one who hates Stark the most? Why would he allow his son-in-law to join the Avengers Alliance? These are just the information published online. Chu Shu realized that he missed the plot of Ant-Man 1. The second-generation Ant-Man, Scott, not only defeated Yellowjacket but also joined the Avengers. And it's not just the second-generation Ant-Man who joined the Avengers Alliance. Chu Shu's beloved relatives and brothers, Daredevil, also joined the Avengers Alliance. And they joined the Avengers Alliance together with Punisher, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and other street heroes. In addition, also joining the Avengers Alliance is the new Black Panther, T'Challa, who lost his father in the Ultron crisis. Falcon, Sam, who was recruited by Captain America. And Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes, Captain America's old buddy who was rescued from the Hydra base last time. Turtle. Are they trying to start a world war with this recruitment? Chu Shu commented while browsing the list of personnel already published online. Obviously, the previous major crises have caused great psychological trauma to the members of the Avengers Alliance. They were forced to recruit heroes from all over the world to prepare for possible larger crises. Not bad, it's a good idea. But unfortunately, they are all small-scale fights. Compared to me, it's really not impressive. Recalling his own experiences during this time, Chu Shu's mouth curled up, with an expression of, I'm still the coolest. Especially when looking at those trivial news online, like Captain America teaming up with Hawkeye to defeat a group of terrorists, or Iron Man's mansion in Los Angeles being bombed. Chu Shu couldn't help but laugh. Fortunately, I didn't join the Avengers. Otherwise, it would have lowered my status. Who lowered your status? As soon as Chu Shu finished speaking, Tony Stark's voice came from behind. I knew you. You must have backed up the Super AI version of JARVIS. Chu Shu didn't even need to guess. Just as he returned to Earth, Tony came knocking on his door. I don't believe there was no help from the Super AI JARVIS in all of this. What do you mean by backup? I never deleted it. The idiots in Congress don't understand AI anyway. I just fooled them with a model. Tony said as he sat down next to Chu Shu's computer and turned it on. After waiting for 3 or 4 seconds without it starting up, he frowned. What's this? So slow. JARVIS, invade this internet cafe and overwrite a new operating system. Tony said. Inside the internet cafe, everyone's computer screens dimmed and then brightened. There seemed to be no visible changes, but the smoothness of the computers had increased countless times. Tell me, why did you come looking for me? Chu Shu closed the web page and skillfully opened the computer version of Glory of the Superheroes. Log in, match, instantly select Batman. I came to invite you to join an organization. Is it Avengers Alliance again? I've said it so many times, I don't. No, it's not Avengers Alliance. This is a new organization, and for now, I'll call it Illumination Society. Chu Shu was stunned for a moment. Illumination Society? This is even more reason not to join. Has this organization ever done anything reliable? The inconsistency of the lighting in the comics is forgivable. The main point is the inclusion of certain members, like Professor X, Beast, and Mr. Fantastic. They are not from this universe, after all. Anyway, Chu Shu hasn't found any evidence of mutant existence. But there are a few other members. Like Black Panther from Wakanda, Aquaman Namor, and the Black Bat King of the X-Men, these are more likely. Black Panther and Namor can be confirmed to exist in this universe. As for the Black Bat King, Chu Shu hasn't been to the moon, so it's uncertain. But there are mutants on Earth, like Sky, who is a typical mutant. Thinking of this, Chu Shu asked, so, how many members does your Illumination Society currently have? Chu Shu wants to know if Tony has made contact with Atlantis under the sea. And if he has established contact with Atalan on the moon. But what surprised Chushu was, well, for now, if you join, the Illumination Society will have 2 members. Tony touched his nose awkwardly and said. Chushu had an expression of, are you kidding me? No, I thought of you first. It shows how important you are in my heart. Tony wanted to save face, so he added, and I've already made a list. First, you, Chushu, the most powerful hero on Earth, the Demon Hunter, no, the Lord of Hell, the Great Satan. Don't flatter me, just tell me about the others. Chushu looked disgusted. Besides you, I also plan to invite the new king of Wakanda, T'Challa. Then there's Dr. Banner. Finally, there's Daniel, the great magician from the Battle of New York, but I might need your help to introduce him. Tony had a pleasing smile on his face. Chushu was stunned after hearing this. Is that it? T'Challa and Banner are one thing, but you even included Daniel the magician? And you even recommended him, but I haven't seen him since. Tony, you're even more useless than I imagined. I thought you had at least made contact with Atlantis or Atalan, one of them. What? Atlantis? Tony looked confused. He didn't understand the connection between a fictional underwater city and the Illuminati. Alright, don't come to me with these trivial matters anymore. Unless the problem escalates to the level of Earth's destruction, you guys should solve it yourselves. So that I don't have to intervene and you all end up with nothing to do, unemployed. Chushu waved his hand. He finally understood why the likes of the Ancient One and Odin didn't intervene during the Chitauri invasion. It turns out they were giving the young people a chance to grow. Do well, Tony, I have faith in you. Chushu finally understood what it felt like to be a big shot. After finishing the game, he stood up, patted Tony's shoulder, and prepared to leave. The reason I wanted to form the Illuminati is because I met a woman. Just as Chushu was about to leave, Tony suddenly stood up and said. She's called Ajax. Not long ago, this woman came to me on her own. I thought. She came to join us, but unfortunately, that's not the case. She claims to be a member of the Eternals, a messenger of the gods, but that's not important. What's important is that she revealed some terrifying disasters to me. Tony stood up. He loudly stated the reason why he wanted to form the Illuminati. Everyone else in the internet cafe was confused. Pairs of eyes looked over. What the hell, Tony Stark? Then their second reaction was, what? Terrifying disasters. In an instant, the internet cafe was buzzing with excitement. Do you know that Illumination Society is a secret organization? As more and more people gathered around, Chushu grumbled and opened a teleportation portal, kicking Tony into it. Inside the holy place in New York, Tony, who was kicked in, rolled on the floor twice. Why do you always kick me? Tony's voice carried a hint of grievance. If I remember correctly, it seems that every time I enter Chushu's teleportation portal, I am kicked in. Because you deserve it. Chushu followed and entered the holy place in New York. As soon as they entered, they saw the Ancient One sitting on the sofa, chatting with Wanda. Cough, Ancient One. Chushu greeted. Just finished a game, playing as Batman, lost, final score 9-2/1. I told you, kid, didn't I? The Ancient One turned his head and gave Chushu a look as if he had caught him doing something wrong. After speaking, the Ancient One turned to Wanda, and her face immediately turned into a kind and loving ant smile. Child, Origin magic power has infinite possibilities. Let me teach you how to use it. The Ancient One was very satisfied with Wanda. It felt like looking at her own daughter-in-law. She wanted to teach Wanda all her hidden skills. But this lady doesn't have the eye of Agamotto, how does she know everything? And it's not my fault that we lost, my teammates were all idiots. Chushu muttered in his heart. Clearly, the eye of Agamotto is still with me, so how can she still see me? She even knows the final score of the game I played? Is this lady cheating? Chushu couldn't figure it out, so he decided not to think about it and focus on the main topic. Stark, now you can talk about the Eternal Clan. Yuan Wencheng. Just as Chushu found Tony. Continuing their previous conversation at the internet cafe. While Ancient One was chatting with Wanda, she quietly took out her phone. After the screen lit up, it displayed. Your friend, the #1 Batman in the US server, has gone offline 370 times. Click to view the opponent's personal battle record page. So, this guy named Ajax from the Eternals came to remind you. You're saying that under our feet, on this planet, Earth, there is a celestial being? And there are also some mutant races that are about to awaken? After listening to Tony's explanation, Chushu was a bit confused for the first time. Mainly because he hadn't watched the movie, The Eternals, before he crossed over, as he had heard it was a super bad film. As for the Celestial group, the comic book version, Shu was somewhat familiar with it. But he hadn't watched the movie version. He didn't know if what Tony said was true or false. What celestial beings are treating Earth as an incubator? And after giving birth to celestial babies, Earth will be destroyed? I don't know about this either. As Shu was speaking, he suddenly realized and turned to look at Ancient One. Boss, do you know about this? I do. Ancient One nodded. You know, but you don't care. Shu was confused. How could you just stand by and watch when Earth is about to be destroyed? So, you're saying, I've been standing on a time bomb all along. Why panic? I've already seen the rest of the plot, and someone will go and stop it. And usually, by the time Tiamat is born, I'm long dead. Oh, right, Tiamat is the celestial embryo on Earth. I had a chat with it earlier. It's a pretty nice person. South Dakota on the vast grasslands, a farmhouse stands out conspicuously. Is this the address that Ajax left for you? Shu, guided by Tony, opened the portal to this place. That's right. She said this is where she secluded herself. Tony put on the latest Mark 45 armor. Watched the surroundings with great vigilance. The reason for being so cautious is because the eternal female named Ajax, the last time she met Tony, gave him a little shock from the eternal race. In short, she beat Tony up. Be careful, Shu, let me tell you, females of this race are extremely violent. They don't accept the slightest hint of romantic flirting. Tony stood on guard, carefully approached the wooden house. Go to the back of the house. Shu seemed to have discovered something, frowned, and said a sentence. Then teleported directly to the back of the wooden house. Waiting for Tony to fly over, he was directly stunned. A camping tent was set up behind the wooden house. And next to the tent, a woman's body had turned pale. It's her. It's Ajax. Tony recognized the woman's identity. She's been dead for a while. Shu definitely didn't know how to determine the time of death like a forensic expert. His way of judging was to squat next to the body and poke it with a stick. Stiff. It means she's been dead for a while. It looks like she was attacked by some kind of beast. Tony walked over, and the armor's scan showed many claw marks and bite marks on Ajax's body. Who are you? Just as Shu and Tony were examining Ajax's body. Suddenly, a loud shout, Superman, no, it was Akaris of the Eternals flying over. Two parallel golden beams shot out from his eyes, directly knocking Tony away. Fortunately, Tony was wearing armor, he wasn't injured. Just knocked away, rolling a few times on the lawn, looking a bit embarrassed. Shu had actually noticed someone approaching earlier. But because he realized that the attacker's target was Tony, he deliberately held back and didn't warn him. It was only after the attack ended that Shu took this opportunity to make a move. Hey, you, the bootleg Superman, come down. Who gave you the right to attack my friend? Shu spoke, and instantly teleported into the air. As the strongest of the Eternals, Akaris immediately sensed movement behind him. Just as he was about to turn around, a fist the size of a sandbag rapidly enlarged before his eyes. Is this guy a god? Akaris had one last thought in his mind. Then, his whole body flew towards the ground like a bullet being fired. Boom. Accompanied by a loud noise, a huge crater was blasted into the lawn. The soil spread outwards in layers like waves. Fortunately, I held back my strength. Shu patted his chest, scared, almost forgetting that he was on Earth. If he had punched through the earth, would he be scolded when he went back by the Ancient One? Akaris. Just as Shu knocked down the bootleg Superman with one punch. Two exclamations came over. One big and one small, two women came running. There's not much to say about the older one, just an Asian adult female with an average appearance. The younger one is similar, around 10 years old, with short hair, resembling the character, Peter Pan, from fairy tales. Icarus. Watching Icarus being punched into a meteor crater by Shu. Little Peter Pan seems a bit angry, she clenches her fist. Various monster illusions start appearing around them. Stop. Water sprite. The Asian woman looks quite calm and grabs hold of little Peter Pan, interrupting her spellcasting. Then, she looks towards Shu. Shu, I know who you are, the great lord of hell, please calm down. We are not your enemies. Let me introduce myself, my name is Ceci, she is the water sprite, and that reckless guy is Icarus. We are all members of the Eternal Clan. Ceci introduces the 3 members of the Eternal Clan present. At the same time, she seems to be quite familiar with Shu. It's okay, don't be nervous, I'm just avenging my friend. Shu smiles faintly. As if he intentionally didn't remind anyone just now, including Tony Stark who just got up from the ground. That punch was really beautiful. Also, I heard everything, thanks, good brother. Tony walks up to Chu Shu. To thank Chu Shu for avenging him, he secretly gives a thumbs up. Chu Shu's mouth curls up. See, these two idiots are still saying thank you. Soon, the bootleg Superman, Icarus, also climbs out of the deep pit. But this time, he dares not shoot lasers or even fly. He obediently walks on the ground beside everyone. Be careful, this guy is god level, we can't act recklessly. Icarus quietly reminds Ceci as he comes to her side. Icarus, can you please go back and go online, search for the keywords, Lord of Hell. See who the first person that pops up on the homepage is. Seth rolled his eyes. Now the whole world knows there's someone you shouldn't mess with, but of course, you don't know. Everyone gathered around Ajax's body again. This time, a member of the Eternals provided a more specific autopsy report. It was the Deviants who killed her. Akari's squatted down to examine it and made a determination. Seth and the water sprite nodded as well. Chu Shu, let me explain. Deviants are a terrifying predatory species. They possess terrifying destructive power and astonishing reproductive speed. Planets where they exist often become lifeless, eventually turning into dead stars. And our mission as Eternals is to eliminate the Deviants. Just in case Chu Shu didn't know what Deviants were. Seth took the time to explain to Chu Shu. Did you hear that, Tony? Eliminating the Deviants is the mission of the Eternals. But we're not Eternals. After listening to Seth's explanation, Chu Shu immediately realized it was a good excuse to slack off and said, in the tone of the king. Eliminating the Deviants is the mission of our Eternals. But if we fail, all life on Earth will perish, without exception. Akari's, who was still upset about the punch earlier, upon hearing Chu Shu's words, immediately assumed a stance of, we are the Asgardians of Earth. This. Chu Shu couldn't stand it anymore. What's with all the nonsense? If you fail, Earth will be destroyed. Although Chu Shu hadn't seen the movie, Eternals, he had seen, Avengers 3+4. Blowing your own trumpet so loudly. Why didn't you Eternals show up when fighting Thanos? The more I look at you, the more I dislike you, disrespectful copyright violator. Chu Shu directly took out the eye of Agamotto. He had noticed that something was off with this guy's expression when examining Ajax's body earlier. Chu Shu could almost conclude. When this female Eternal died, this guy was most likely present. Stop babbling. Check the surveillance. Time Gem is responsible for time regression. Reality Gem is responsible for constructing scenes. Soon. The scene before Ajax's death appeared before everyone's eyes in the form of a reality projection. Everyone quickly glimpsed the scenes recorded in the River of Time. First, there was a scene of Ajax before his death, in front of a wooden house. Akari's. You were there at the time. Thena saw the images displayed by the two infinite gems together. She was instantly shocked. Chu Shu's premonition was indeed correct. The last person Ajax saw before his death was the counterfeit Superman, Akari's. The two sat on a bench in front of the wooden house, chatting like old friends. Akari's, I hope to have your support. Ajax sat on the bench. Facing Akari's beside him, he said with great emphasis. You know, Akari's, the Celestials will destroy this planet. I have followed the Celestial Erisham for millions of years, never doubting him, but this time. I have lived among humans for thousands of years, witnessed their conflicts, lies, and killings. But I have also seen them, laughing and loving, and witnessed their dreams. This planet should not be destroyed. This is not only my conclusion, but also Tiamat's conclusion. Ajax spoke slowly. But Akari's beside him had a slight change in expression. You want to stop the emergence of the Celestials? To prevent Tiamat's birth? Akari's didn't believe Ajax's words, especially that it was Tiamat's decision. Because stopping the emergence of the Celestials would be equivalent to self-destruction for Tiamat. As an unborn Celestial, Tiamat would forever sleep deep in the Earth's core. How is this any different from suicide? To kill a Celestial in order to save a group of worthless weak humans. That's right. Ajax is the leader of the Eternals on Earth. But this time, Icarus couldn't understand Ajax's decision. However, he didn't argue. I believe in you, Ajax. I will continue to follow in your footsteps. Thank you, Icarus. Ajax looked relieved. Because stopping the birth of the Celestials was an extremely difficult task. This could likely lead to their superior, the Celestial, Erisham, coming to stop them. For this reason, Ajax had to seek help from all sources of power. Including the various forces on Earth. Icarus, I have contacted the members of the Avengers. Next, I am planning to go to Kamar Taj to seek the help of the human magicians there. Ajax explained her upcoming journey, but Icarus had a gloomy expression. Ajax, I support all your decisions, but I have to show you something first. Where did they go? Seeing the screen temporarily disappear, Cersei anxiously asked. She desperately wanted to know the truth about Ajax's death. Don't worry, they went to Alaska. I'll skip ahead to the scene where they're on their way. Shu manipulated the eye of Agamotto. Turning back, he couldn't help but tease the gloomy-faced Icarus. Little Superman, you don't mind if I maliciously edit it, do you? Icarus had a gloomy expression, his fists clenched tightly. He never imagined that there would be such an artifact on Earth. Thinking about what he had done, about to be revealed to the world, made him nervous. Although he disguised this nervousness well, but in front of his eternal companions whom he had been with for thousands of years, there was nowhere to hide. Icarus, you. Cersei felt incredulous, but it didn't matter. Shu had already edited the remaining scenes and presented them through the reality gem. Alaska. Ajak and Icarus arrived at the foot of a snowy mountain covered in white snow. Standing at the edge of a cliff, below was a frozen lake. Several dozen grotesque figures were running on the surface of the lake. Mutants. How can there be so many? Ajak widened his eyes. They were frozen at the bottom of the lake. We overlooked this area back then. As the manifestation of the gods approaches and the Earth's core warms up, they have been awakened. And then, as usual, these mutants dig tunnels underground, reproduce, and expand their population. What you see now is just the tip of the iceberg. At the bottom of the lake, in the tunnels they dug, their numbers increased dramatically every day. Icarus had a gloomy face, seemingly talking about the threat of mutants. But his gaze was always fixed on Ajak. Icarus, we must contact the others. I knew mutants would appear, but I didn't expect them to appear so soon. Nor did I expect their numbers to be so many. While saying this, Ajak walked to the edge of the cliff. He leaned out to look down, however, at that moment. Two golden lights burst out of Icarus's eyes. Ajak was about to turn his head. But he was hit by the two beams from Icarus's eyes. With an expression of disbelief on his face, propelled by the impact of the beams, he crashed straight into the ice lake. Bang! The moment he fell into the ice lake, Ajak immediately broke free from Icarus's beams and was about to fly away. But dozens of fierce mutants surrounded him. They pounced on him from the air. Then they launched an attack, ferocious biting. At the same time, the ice layer on the lake surface gradually cracked. In the pitch-black lake water, countless mutants received the message and swiftly swam up. Icarus. Ajak fought desperately. But her eternal clan ability is to heal others, belonging to a support role, and not good at fighting. Faced with the siege of more and more mutant clans. Soon. Ajak became exhausted and eventually fell to the ground. Rora a special mutant clan approached. Its tentacles pierced into Ajak's body from behind, absorbing the eternal clan ability within Ajak. As this special mutant clan finished absorbing, including itself, all the mutant clans present seemed to be evolving. Golden energy emerged from their bodies, and their appearances changed slightly. Soon, all the mutant clans possessed Ajak's self-healing ability. As if the ability was shared. One prospers, all prosper. Roar A. Roar A. The evolved mutant clans collectively roared. As if in a frenzy. However, in the midst of their frenzy, a figure swiftly passed by, flashing between the mutant clans, snatching Ajak's body. It was Icarus. Shu deliberately came to confront them, allowing everyone to see Icarus's expression. Only to see Icarus, who killed Ajak, had no trace of sadness on his face. Just a gloomy expression, even with a hint of a sickly smile. Swish. After watching the surveillance footage, everyone's gaze turned to Icarus, seeing the plan exposed. Icarus looked around with a gloomy face, his gaze carrying a hint of killing intent. No other choice, must kill to keep it quiet. But when Icarus's gaze fell on Shu's face, the killing intent in his eyes instantly disappeared. Oh no. In trouble. Forgot there's someone unbeatable here. Uh-oh. Icarus felt a jolt in his heart. His heart raced, his gaze flickered, and he began to look for an escape route. What's wrong, little Superman? Don't feel like killing and silencing anymore. Shu looked at Icarus with a mocking expression. Why? Icarus? Seth's eyes were filled with disappointment. She couldn't understand why Icarus would attack a close friend they had spent so much time together with. What do you mean, why? Our eternal clan's mission is to give birth to the gods. This is our duty. Ajak betrayed the gods, she must die. As Icarus spoke, he stepped back, but he hadn't taken a few steps back yet. Tony's palm cannon was pressed against the back of his head. My brother is right, little Superman, remember to respect copyright issues next time. Tony closed his mask and assumed a combat stance. The Marvel world does have DC Comics, so everyone is naturally familiar with the classic image of Superman. Stark, do you think your weapons can hurt me? Feeling the heat of the palm cannon against the back of his head. Icarus didn't turn around, he said coldly. Icarus admitted that he couldn't defeat the god-level Chu-Shu. But when it came to a human whose combat power relied solely on technology, Icarus was confident. Is that so? Inside the battle armor, Tony smirked coldly. The temperature of the palm cannon began to skyrocket. If I max out my power, one shot is enough to disintegrate atoms. How will you deal with that? Icarus, run. I'll hold them off. However, at that moment, the young girl who looked to be only about 10 years old, Sprite, suddenly shouted and raised her hand, conjuring a large number of illusions. In an instant, a large number of deviants appeared around them. These ferocious monsters, roaring, each one looks real, flying towards us. Sir, be careful. Tony's armor transmitted JARVIS's reminder. Do you think I'm an idiot, JARVIS? These are all fake. Tony's words were cut off. He was immediately tackled by a mutated creature. The sharp teeth of the mutated creature made a piercing friction sound against Tony's armor. Oh, shoot, aren't these monsters illusions? Why can they still attack me? Tony was pinned down by two mutated creatures, unable to get up for a short time. Are you crazy, Water Sprite? Icarus killed Ajax, and you're still standing on his side. Circe wanted to stop the Water Sprite, but before she could finish speaking, several illusions of mutated creatures pounced towards her. Well done, Water Sprite. Icarus took the opportunity to try to escape. But as soon as he flew up, a figure blocked his path. How boring. I thought your movie, The Eternals, had a grand scope. After all, it's just a bunch of Chunibyo fighting among yourselves. Chu-Shu shook his head. He agreed to Tony's request to come and see because he hadn't watched The Eternals before he time traveled, wanting to make up for it. But he didn't expect. The mighty Eternals, Thanos people, got involved with the ultimate big shots in the universe, the Celestials. The final plot that unfolded turned out to be the lowest level betrayal. It became an internal conflict among the Eternals. Fortunately, I didn't watch this movie back then, otherwise it would have been a waste of 2 hours of my life. After Chu-Shu finished speaking, he was about to take action. Whoosh! A flashy energy spear flew towards him. As if having eyes on his back, Chu-Shu didn't even turn his head and grabbed the energy spear with one hand. But the spear quickly turned into golden energy and dissipated. Icarus, we received a message from the water spirits saying that you were attacked. It turned out that a few remaining members of the Eternals had rushed over. They were God Madongshi, no, it should be Gilgamesh. The psychic manipulator, Druid. The female speedster, the deaf mute, Makari. The one who can shoot cosmic energy bullets from his fingertips, Sansan, also known as Kingo. The battle angel, Ajak, also known as Tina, the spear from earlier was her weapon. And the intelligent Nije, the eternal scientist, Fastos. Including the already dead Ajak. All the members of the Eternals on Earth were suddenly gathered together. Chu-Shu was experiencing for the second time, so many people of different skin colors within the same race. The last race with such inclusiveness, was the Succubi. Why are there black uncles in your Eternals? And Chu-Shu really wanted to complain about the Marvel world. Why do they portray black uncles as intelligent scientists and such? It really feels out of place, including black people, Sansan, and God Madongshi. Oh right, Thanos is also a member of the Eternals. But Thanos is an Eternal from Titan, but no matter what. Just the Eternals that Chu-Shu knew of already had a bunch of different colors. White, yellow, black, brown, and Thanos purple, only missing red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and indigo. It's hard not to suspect. Is Thanos' obsession with collecting the infinite gems due to the influence of his eternal genes deep down? Tina. Gilgamesh. Sansan. Icarus killed Ajak, he also wants to kill us to keep us quiet. Seeing the arrival of the other companions, Thena immediately quickly explained what had just happened. What? The few members of the Eternals were completely confused. Don't believe her, it was Ceci who betrayed us. She's in cahoots with these humans. They want to stop the manifestation of the gods. They're sabotaging our mission. Icarus retorted. Then, the water sprite also stepped forward and declared, Icarus is right, Ceci wants to stop the manifestation of the gods. No. Ceci was about to argue back but froze. It seemed. The water sprite and Icarus were right. As an eternal being, if she were to prevent the manifestation of the gods, wouldn't that be betraying the mission of the eternal beings? But this was the dying wish of the former leader of the eternal beings, Ajak. Ceci pondered. In the end, she decided to stand firm in her position. To inherit Ajax's dying wish, protect the earth, and prevent the manifestation of the gods. However, the other members of the eternal beings didn't know all of this, and seeing Ceci's silence, they assumed she was in agreement. Ceci, you've betrayed the eternal beings. The manifestation of the gods is our mission, and it cannot be betrayed. Ceci's silence became conclusive evidence of betrayal in the eyes of the crowd. It was assumed that Icarus' statement was correct. And so, the newly arrived members of the eternal beings all stood on Icarus' side. Only the female speedster wavered, unsure of which side to believe. As a deaf mute, she gestured and signed for a while, her fingers constantly moving. Shu couldn't help but laugh at this colorful group of jokers. What was there to be so conflicted about? Just fight it out. Whoever survives will be the truth. Alright, you all better clarify your positions. So I don't end up killing the wrong person next, although I don't really care if I do. Shu finished speaking. The mirror space expanded. Instantly, everyone present was enveloped in it.